It is great to be here with you today, and I'm grateful for the invitation to join you as you close these days together and prepare to go back home. It's so appropriate that, as I said at the beginning of Mass, we're here on a day in which the church in the world is celebrating World Youth Day with the Holy Father, and so we're in solidarity with them. I have the disadvantage, however, of realizing that the Holy Father is going to have Mass this afternoon. I was hoping he would have it early this morning so I could rob his homily. Well, that I doubt. Today we hear Jesus being so attractive to his disciples in a moment in which he's praying. They see something happening to Jesus when he prays, and so they want that too. Cardinal Wuerl in Washington tells a story of the Little Sisters of the Poor who were ministering in this house, this hospice, where patients were dying of AIDS. And this one patient in particular was very mean to them. He would curse and spit at them. He was so angry about the fact that he was dying, that he had this disease. And he didn't want anything to do with the church because he felt condemned. But each day the sisters would come and be very kind to him. They'd minister to him. They'd smile. They'd bathe him. They'd make sure that he had everything that he needed to be comfortable in his last days. And so towards the end, as he's dying, he said to one of the sisters, "Call a priest, I want to be baptized." She was shocked. She was so ill-treated by this man, so she called the priest, and the priest said, "Tell me, why is it that now you want to be baptized? Why you want to come into the church?" And he says, "There's only one reason. I have been so terrible to these sisters. I have been horrible to them. And yet they treat me with kindness. There's something inside of them that allows them to overcome anything that I throw at them. I want what they have. I want what they have. I want their serenity. I want their peace." That's what the disciples saw in Jesus. They wanted what he had in praying. And so, listen today to these readings through that perspective of how Jesus is telling us that prayer should be attractive to us because of how it transforms our lives. Not as just an opportunity for us to ask what we need. That's important. But a different kind of prayer that transforms us. And we hear a couple of things about what happens here. The first, as he tells the disciples to pray, is to pray that God's kingdom as it is in heaven will be higher on earth. That what is happening in the heavens will be revealed in our lives. That our lives will, in some way, understand that they're mystery. So often in life, we reduce our lives and our attention span to those things that we observe, that we taste and feel, we see and hear and touch, as though only those things are the real life that's there. Jesus tells us when we are drawn into prayer, God reveals to us his mystery, little by little, bit by bit, in short steps. And that is why when we hear that Abraham is praying for the city of Sodom, he goes from 50 to 45 to 40 to 35. Not because he's bargaining with God, but because God's will always was to save them all. Little by little, Abraham came to understand the mystery that God had, that God's life is all about. They tell the story of a man who comes across a building site, and there are people who are doing all sorts of things, 3 men who have wheelbarrows in their hand pushing them. He goes to the first one and says, "What are you doing?" The man somewhat indignantly said, "What do you mean, what am I doing? I'm pushing a wheelbarrow full of bricks." He says to the second one, "What are you doing?" Who was also pushing a wheelbarrow full of bricks. And he said, "I'm making a living to feed my family." He goes to the third one and says, "What are you doing?" And the third one says, "I'm building a cathedral." Prayer helps us understand the greater mystery of life, inviting us not to reduce it to just the things in the world that we see, but to allow God to help us understand the deep mystery of our life. Each one of you, as you think about the future and what your life will be, cannot allow it to be reduced to just the challenges that are there and the difficulties that you're going to experience, and to say, "Okay, I'll just survive. I'll just haul this wheelbarrow full of bricks." Or even to allow your life to just be about making a living, as valuable as it is. It also has to be open to what God is telling you about the mystery of your life, that you're building something more than you ever imagined. Thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Enter into prayer to allow the Lord to reveal to you the mystery of your life. Bring Him those cares and concerns that you have, so that He will reveal to you that your life is bigger than your problems, that God has more in store from you than your heartaches or even your failings, and you are more than your sinfulness. There's a holiness, a depth there that God graces you with, that He wants to reveal to you. We also hear that Jesus tells His disciples to pray for daily bread. And we realize as we hear that parable afterwards that bread is just more than something in which we feed our stomach. No, we're that bread. We are to feed others. That's the symbol of that man who knocks on the door late at night at midnight, who's so desperate. Why does he want that bread? Because he has a friend who has come late at night who's hungry. He doesn't want it for himself. He wants his life to be given for them. And he will take the risk, even of alienating someone else, in order for that to happen. When we pray for daily bread, when we pray for what we need, it is not about just how we might feel in our own spirituality to be safe and secure before God, or even comfortable and consolated with consolation. That will come. But what the Lord reveals to us is that when He gives us daily bread, He gives us the strength to carry on each day. It is to build the relationships that we have with one another. It is to be drawn into how Christ is present in the lives of others. One day, a man who was celebrating his 25th wedding anniversary asked the priest who married them to come. He was older at the time. And he also invited one of his best friends who was a Shakespearean actor. And so as they were there at the party, he prevailed upon the Shakespearean actor to do some sort of recitation as a moment of inspiring and entertaining his group of people there for the party. And so the Shakespearean actor turned to the priest and said, "What would you like to hear?" And the priest said, "I would like you to say the 23rd Psalm, 'The Lord is my shepherd.'" And the actor said, "I will do that, but I want you to recite it after I do." And so the actor went on in a wonderful, wonderful voice that was very inspirational as he said, "The Lord is my shepherd." And he recited it with great, great appeal. And people were just mesmerized. And then when he finished, people began to hear and listen very attentively to the very soft voice of the priest saying the same words. And at the end of it, there were tears in the eyes of people. He was so moving in the way that he recited it. And the actor went to the priest and said, "Father, there's a difference between the two of us. I know the words. You know the shepherd." Prayer helps us understand and know the shepherd, that he's working in our lives, who reveals himself to us as a partner. Today in the Eucharist, when we come, he is that bread of life, and he gives us that bread in the Eucharist. And he wants us to be bread for one another. He wants us to know him so well that we become like him, and that our lives are transformed. So I invite you today to make sure that you give time to prayer as you leave here, as you go home. The first pastor that I had, who's still alive, 94 years old, Father Peter Dunn, was once asked, "What does prayer mean to you?" He says, "It's my oxygen. It's my oxygen." The time that you give to prayer, the time that you put aside all of your electronic equipment, from your iPad to your iPhone, your computer, and all the rest of it, and enter the world of entertainment and give yourself to prayer, I will guarantee you, you will find slowly the transforming power of Christ working in your life. You will see your life much bigger than the problems that you have. You'll see a sense of mystery about your life. And you will also get to know the shepherd. You will also begin to have the courage to be daily bread. At the end of Mass, you're going to hear an appeal to be open to how Christ is calling you in your life. Not everyone here is being called to be a priest or religious, but some, and many of you are. Be open to that call. Be open to how this Eucharist might be an opportunity for you to experience the transforming power of Jesus, to be bread that's broken for others. You know, you have to ask the question of yourselves in this generation. Who are going to be the religious sisters who are going to inspire us as the sisters here do for you today? Who's going to do that for your children? Who are the priests who are going to pastor your parishes, baptize your children, bury your parents, do the weddings for the next generation, console you when you're in trouble? People like me are going to pass from the stage of life. Your generation has to ask the question, who's going to take over? Where is the leadership going to come from? And even if you do not feel a call by Christ to religious life, to priesthood, I would ask you to be on the lookout for those in your midst that you see God working in and calling. 90% of those who are called to religious life hear the call from someone who's close to them, whether it's a priest, a classmate, a parishioner, a parent. We all have a stake in this. And so I ask you today, each and every day when you pray, pray for vocations. Pray for those that God's working in their lives. Jesus won't disappoint us. We just have to listen. Today, I invite you, as your next step out of this conference, to give time to prayer. It will transform you. It will change you. Believe it as strongly as you believe that bread and wine are changed into the body and blood of Christ. That's how firmly I'm asking you to believe about the transforming power of prayer. That you too can be changed. That your lives can be bread that's broken for one another. Be willing to go through life not just hauling a wheelbarrow full of bricks, or even just making a living to feed your family, but be willing to build that cathedral.